this is audio log 1 of my audio diaries. I'm N, as per evidence via the channel name, and I'm doing this because while I do have friends to talk to, I have a lot of people in my life that would give an ear to me for my situations. There is kind of a nice thing of just being able to talk and not having to worry about what another person thinks. So I'm uploading these both for myself right now and for myself in the future. I don't really expect anyone to see these, so, but if there is someone out there that sees this, a lot of the things that will be talked about here are like really, they could be all sorts of manners. It could, one second it could be about my favorite character in the series, and then the next how I was brutally assaulted. That was supposed to be kind of funny, but it ain't. Or one. If you see, like, if you hear, like, clicking, it's because I'm on my computer. I'm recording this on my phone. Maybe I had Roblox gameplay on the background of these. But this, I wanted to just yap about my past breakup that happened recently. Recently, like a month ago. Yeah, about a month ago, I was broken up with my long-term boyfriend. I'll just we'll call him Critter. Me and Critter were very basically codependent on each other, which was bad. But then we became like pretty normal. Like, he had his friend group, I had mine. But then I lost some of my friends because he felt that they weren't good for me, and like asked me to cut them off just off like one DM conversation that he had seen from me screen sharing my phone to him. And I agreed, because one, these were really close friends of mine, right? We haven't talked in a long time, but I thought maybe, like, maybe he has a point. Maybe I wasn't like, and like, maybe he has a point. Maybe they aren't bad for me, and I'm just like blinded by nostalgia. Because I could see why someone would come to the conclusion that they're like me just from like that one message combo. And I tried explaining it at first. Like, I didn't like just be like, oh, okay, and then block the guy. Because I'd known that guy for like a long time. And I tried to explain it first, because it was a message basically. Not everyone's friend groups does this, but I feel like a few of them have. Like this sort of like this funny little joke that's like, oh, like you're messaging them and you're like, what are you doing? Just like out of nowhere, right? And they reply back, hey, speak to me nicely, or like respond, like talk to me in like a proper way. And then you jokingly say, yes, master, or like, yes, king. And so that was a joke. That was like, for context, the and sorry if I go silent. I'm playing a shooter. And so oh my god, I'm losing who I'm speaking because this is an intense game. I need to switch to like a tycoon or something. Um, so that was a joke, and I explained that to him, and he was like, "No, I don't do that with my friends. I don't. That's like a really unhealthy dynamic for you to have with your friend." And I was like, "I can see this," so I cut him off, even though this was like a very close friend of mine of like since my childhood, since like me, like this guy, the guy that I cut off, and I'm friends with him again. Um, and we didn't talk that much, so it wouldn't even probably be considered cutting off to him because we had no. And so we're talking again. I'm in a friend group with all my other friends from that era. Um, and they're like one of my main friend groups at this point. And sorry, I keep using a lot of filler words. Like I don't know why I'm saying sorry. No one's gonna watch this. Um, so he told me to cut them off. Point blank. Point blank. Repeating that again. Repeating that point again. I'm talking in circles. But he told me to cut them off. I did. Meaning he went well. I lose one of like my main like I didn't talk to that guy much, but I talked to friends that were mutuals. I lost that because he was like the center of that. So I only really have friends in the server that I was invited to where I got close to a critter. And so I have them, and he comes to me complaining about every single person in that server, talking about, oh, this friend fucking, they don't like me. They only prioritize themselves. No one really talks to me when I make jokes. They don't find me funny. They don't do this. Maybe I've grown out of them. And I'm like, okay, I we have mostly kind of the same humor for the most part. Like his jokes make me laugh. He nonchalantly tried to not laugh at my jokes for some fucking reason. Pissed me off every time he did that, but like whatever. Um um I'm getting hella jumped right now. I'd like y'all to understand that. Um but like yeah, he'd complain about them to me like most of the time and be like they don't get it. They're immature. They don't want to talk about these things. And when they would get along, he'd be like, "Oh, I had such a fun time," or like he'd be like passively miserable, you know. And I get it, I get it. I'm a teenager with hell of a lot of mental issues. I have a ton. Some medically recognized, some not. Um, oh, this guy has a sniper rifle in this game. That's awesome. Fucking no lifer though. That thing's like $4 million. I hit the wrong guy. But yeah, and I try my best to comfort him. You know, that's what a good partner does. Like I'll try to talk it out with if you want me to try to talk it out with I'll do that. I'll like, do you want to do something just us? And so he'd essentially isolate me from them for a while. So I never had any really tight connections in that server. Like I had this one main friend who I'll call a Jupiter. Um, so me and Jupiter were like really close during this time. But Critter would always be insanely jealous of me and Jupiter's dynamic. So he'd be like, "Why can't you do that with me? Why can't you do this? Why do you have this like?" Oh, I just saw someone's kill. I'm sorry. Um. um and Griffith beating my ass right now, bro. But yeah. And I come for him. I separated myself from Jupiter a bit. Like, we weren't as close, but we were still really close. And me and Jupiter, before dating, like me and Jupiter before me dating Critter had a server together, and we still do. We still talk on that server a lot. It's like we rarely use EMs. We use that server. Um, and I made it because we were planning to join this campaign of like a mutual friend in that group. With OCs, original characters that had lore together, and he got. We weren't dating at the time, Critter. But after the fact, when we started dating, he got really jealous of not being either allowed in that server or that he couldn't see exactly what was going on, right? This comes into play later. And yeah, so he was very insecure, very jealous. And I knew this coming in. Like, I chased this guy for like 3 months. Like, I wanted that cookie bad. And I got it. So I was happy. I was happy to like help him out, you know. Like, he was also struggling in school, so I offered to help him. I offered. He was scared of failing, so I offered like to like email his teachers for him, like under his name, and be like, hey, I'm like struggling so much right now. I really appreciate like a few days extension. I know that like you probably have given me enough already, but I'd really appreciate it. So I I did all that for him. And this is not to say that I was like the perfect girl, right? The perfect guy, the perfect partner. Because no, I have, like I said, mental illness. I'm bound to have like insane like mood swings or like mood. They all jump in me right now. Oh God, sorry. Um, I'm destabilized. I'm gonna die. But okay, that's enough. That's enough. This game. That's enough. I keep getting distracted in like what I'm saying. But yeah, essentially that was the dynamic. He'd come to me like every day, miserable, and I'd be like, okay, let me, I'll help you out. I'll be here for you. And then school ended, right? Like all through, we started dating around March, March. Um, and from March like to like December, and then like the next school year, right? Keep in mind we're both minors. So this comes into play later. Um, but me and him were dating. He was very also struggled with hypersexuality too. So I was like also helping him with that. Um, and we did a lot that like he wanted to do, but we didn't really do much of my stuff. And which was okay, cause I'm like I am very easy to please. So like if I want to do something, but you want to do something else half the time, I'm gonna be like, okay. But like it gets to a point, and to his benefit, he would try sometimes to do what I want to, but then he'd get bored and he'd be like, I'm bored. Can we do something else? And would never put in like um that effort to me. This story, this one I'm about to say, it's really short, so I don't know if it even counts as a story. Happened when we recently like started dating, like around that time. Um, but I was recommending him a romance anime. Preface: he doesn't really like romance. He finds them unrealistic. Um, and so I gave him some recommendations I like that I found like kind of realistic. like still like that dream like of like the romance anime, but like still like you could see this happening. And I gave him some, and we started watching A Sign of Affection, which is this this one where she's deaf, the girl, and and the guy like learns sign language for her. It's like a love at first sight sort of deal. And he before this I watched animes he liked, by the way. I think by this time we had already watched, it was either Cowboy Bebop or Attack on Titan. So me and Critter, we're watching it. I'm asking him how's he liking it and stuff. I'm telling him to watch and pay attention because he kept pausing it and it was ticking me off because I wanted him to just just watch, to just appreciate what's going on. And he got so bored that he he like he paused the show and started playing the those like Google games, you know? And like now I can see like why he thought it would be funny. But this was a show that I told him I really liked and that it was one of my favorites, and it meant like it didn't mean the world to me, but it meant like a significant amount. And he did that, and I obviously, as like any normal person, would get upset, and I told him to fuck off, or essentially just, if he didn't want to watch it, to tell me, and then I left the call, I'm pretty sure. And then he started majorly apologizing me, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I was just bored, I didn't know that, like, you wouldn't find it funny, I thought it was funny, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, essentially that happened. And maybe I should have taken that as a sign, you know, that his attention span with these sort of things is, like, hella fucking small, but, like, you know, what can you do now, I suppose. And yeah, so that occurred, and I forgave him, you know. I was like, I was I was like a kind, forgiving soul. I was like, okay, I forgive you. Just don't do that again, especially for something that I really liked. Cause I'd always give everything he made me watch like my full undivided attention. Like even though I struggle with that sort of thing. Just because my attention span is really bad. I don't have any sort of like ADHD or anything. But yeah. So the fact he couldn't give me that respect like ticked me off. And that's like one of like the not bad stories. There's like a really bad one that I might talk about, but like you know, because I also have a fear that like he'll find this and then like come into my messages being like, why are you spewing all this? They're gonna tie this back to me, because he has he I don't know his dreams flicker a lot. Critter's dreams flicker between so in like 1 second he'll want to be like a star, and like he wants to be a star. He wants to like become famous via music or via YouTube, and like I believe that he can do it. Like you know, he'd sing to me. I called him a songbird. But yeah. Another story I have. These are all kind of negative because like I wanted to vent out my feelings. But another story I had was when he first came over to my place, because he didn't want me over at his, because his parents were really strict, and I've met them, and yeah, they low-key scare me. But I went over. No, oh my god, I'm switching up. I'm thinking of like another, because we had two first dates technically. We had the first date where he came over to my place, and then we had the first date where I got invited to celebrate their birthday. So me and Critter, he came over to my place, and me, I was ecstatic. I put on nice clothes and stuff, and things like that, and like he wanted instantly to like do something like sexual and stuff, and I I don't have minded, but like he put so much emphasis and then like being nervous, and like as a nervous response he got like hard, and so I was nervous because I told this guy that I have very like intense trauma with sexual assault, but in that moment I felt like he only wanted me to touch him like in his like you know in his private area so that he could get off while like ignoring my trauma and like how I might have into that, because when I said no he'd be like, oh please please, and I'm getting like sick thinking of it. And essentially like asking me to do a lot of that stuff, and like sometimes like most of the time I agreed to do it because I liked him. I'm not like calling him a sexual assaulter, by the way. I agreed. I'm very conscious that I agreed on like specific times. But it was very odd, especially for like a first date. Now that I think back on it, especially when I said like a lot of the times I talk about just wanting to cuddle and stuff like that. But yeah, the most prominent thing that Critter has done to me that was like many people, by many people I mean like two that I told this to, because I was genuinely like my most miserable when we broke up, and I started spilling everything that made me feel terrible to like my friends, one of my two, no, yeah, but like I spilled it to one, that being Jupiter, and then I spilled it to another friend. But I'm just like really scared of telling a lot of people, because like what if they tell him and then he's like, why are you telling people this when this isn't what happened? Because I know if he said that I'd probably shut up and be scared to speak on anything, because what if it's just me, you know? Like um what if it's just me seeing it that way because I want to see him as a bad person, and if I see him as that bad person I'll be able to move on faster, you know? Because I still haven't moved on despite like everything I'm gonna say. Like I still love him. If he came to me I'd be like, I'd jump for joy, like heels clicking and run back. Even though logistically from like my experience I probably should not do that. But fuck, what time was I gonna talk about? No, I don't remember. Sorry. Okay, I'll talk about another thing and see if I remember what I was gonna talk about. But this one time, well, like I say one time, but this happened pretty consistently. He'd he'd ask me for photos, and like I'd give them to him, you know, even though we were both minors. I'd give them to him because I was like, you know, what if he's like stopped watching like porn because he struggled with that, which is like a normal thing to struggle with. I never hated him for it. I was never like, you're the scum of the earth for having this sort of problem. So I sent him photos, and then he'd like praise me for it, and then but sometimes he'd ask me for them, and I'd be like, no, because I'm not in the mood, or no, and then he'd either like start, or like kind of, it was kind of like a lashing out. He'd tell me like, why don't you like send them to me anymore? Do you not like me? Do you think I'm ugly? This and that. Do you think I'm not attractive anymore? You don't think I'm attractive anymore, do you? That's why you don't want to see my pictures. Like things like that. And it really hurt because I really, like, I did find him attractive. Like, I still do. Yeah. But, but then if it wasn't like stuff like that, it'd be stuff like, that like I don't, like either I don't love him anymore, or that, or that, he that he's been good, that he deserves the pictures, and it's like, pretty please, why won't you? And like I'd fall instantly, bro. Like I don't know if that constitutes guilt tripping is the label, but like, you know, it kind of felt that way. It was kind of the same in person with like sexual stuff. But then when it, like after it happened, he'd get like this wave of guilt and say and ask if like he coerced me, and like he'd start crying saying that he did, which I think maybe he was like self-aware and he just didn't want to accept it. But but yeah, and then he like he do all of that, and then like cry to me saying that he's sorry, and I'd have to convince him that it wasn't coercion, that I wanted to, well, that I wanted to do it too, that that everything was okay. And now, like, when I think back on it, it's just I don't really know if I was actually being truthful with him or myself. That I was just saying things to make him feel better. And he had that worry that I was just saying it, that like so he wouldn't blame himself for that sort of thing. Like, he also never reciprocated that like sexual love to me to the degree I did for him. Because I'd be like, I'd be putting in the work, and then he'd get tired, and then he'd be like, oh, I don't feel like doing this anymore for you, I'm tired. And he'd make a lot of false promises to me. And like, yeah, I would too, in terms of that sort of thing, but like, a lot of mine came from fear. Like, a lot of, not the promises themselves, but like me like saying, like changing my mind. And then he'd get so hung up on that. Like, and I felt like a big piece of shit whenever I promised something. And I did a lot of work for him too. But I suffer a lot with like motivation and like avoidance. So essentially, like, kind of knowing that something's due, or like knowing that I promised someone something, or something I want to do, but I just like not doing it. I suffer a lot from that. Like I'm able to recognize the importance of having to get this thing done, but But yeah. Um, so I'd promise him art and then I wouldn't deliver. And then he'd get really mad and he'd be like, I thought I'd get a lot more art from an artist lover. And things like that made me want to do it a lot less. And I told him that these sort of comments will make me feel good. And he'd be like, okay, I'd stop, but he'd still make those sorts of comments. And in a way, it felt like I was just kind of being used. And it really feels like that. And it kind of hurts because I know I still really love him. And we broke up because he didn't like me anymore, and he fell in love with someone else, which I hope he treats her better, and he doesn't treat her like he treated me. Mine, like, moving on is hard. But like, especially if they weren't good to you, but like you had that dynamic, and you thought that they were. Because I thought he was like the best person for me, because we both were like struggling. We both weren't perfect. He had done stuff in his past that he wasn't proud of, and he told me that. And I'd listen and I'd tell him that it's like everyone has skeletons in the closet. Like I have my own skeletons. Like I had this really bad issue of like lashing out. So but I also had a fear of like people not liking me. So yeah, that's that's the end of that's the end of volume 11. I might make one later. I'll make the second one later to show that, like, to show, hello, to, if I feel like it. I don't know if I'll even post this low-key, low-crick canyon, but yeah, I'll see you when I need you.